D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you. Willie Donick will be along shortly. We are live inside the BetMGM Sports Lounge, which is also inside of Bridgestone Arena for the Atlanta Braves country road trip. Doors are about to open. Come out and see us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge. There will be awesome giveaways, like a chance to win Braves tickets to the game of your choice every 30 minutes, Braves hats, T-shirts, and autographed baseballs. Also, the first 15 people in the door will win a pair of Predators tickets to tonight's game, the season finale at 7 o'clock against the Dallas Stars. So come join us at the Atlanta Braves country road trip inside Bridgestone Arena, inside BetMGM Sports Lounge. So, Derek.
Yes.
Were you ever a gamer?
Yeah, back in the day. A long, like 30 moons ago.
Are we talking Atari here? Am
I
dating you?
A little bit, yeah. I played PlayStation 1 and 2 and 3.
Did you have a favorite game?
I played Tomb Raider a lot.
Okay.
Love Lara Croft.
Shout out Lara Croft.
Yes, love Tomb Raider. So I would play that all the time. That and Resident Evil. Those were outside of like the NFL.
So I'm getting a sense of the football. Kind of video games that you like.
But I hadn't played video games like consistently in over 20 years.
Now, some of you, Joey from Gallatin, may be looking at the stream and seeing me in my big ass glasses and saying, Adam absolutely loves to play video games, which is true. I do love video games. I'm not as much of a gamer anymore because with a 3-year-old son, it's harder to find time to play PlayStation or Nintendo Switch or what have you. So I am not a Fortnite player. It's an incredibly popular game. And one thing that people love to do is they love to watch other people play video games. People like to live stream themselves playing video games, and tons of people watch.
Yes.
And Cam Ward had a Fortnite stream yesterday, I suppose. And he said some interesting things. Let's start with this. He was asked about his favorite wide receivers in the NFL. This is what Cam Ward had to say.
Okay, so y'all already said Ridley, Jamar, Justin.
I think Jason Jamar is like the
and then for my last one, Traylon Burks.
So that was Cam Ward. He loves Calvin Ridley. He said Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and don't forget about Traylon Burks. So just keep that in mind. But that's not all, because I don't know if somebody was hosting the stream with him or if people were just texting in questions. I don't know how any of this Twitch stuff works. I think that's what it's called, Twitch.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was also asked about his favorite running backs. Now, listen to the clip about running backs, but then listen very closely to the end of this clip, which has nothing to do with running backs. David, play the cut.
My top 4 running backs in the league right now, I would say Tony Pollard, Spears. AJ Brown's a dog, but he's not Calvin Ridley.
AJ Brown's a dog, but he's not Calvin Ridley. His favorite running backs in the NFL are Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. His favorite receivers, Calvin Ridley, and shout out to Traylon Burks. I'm picking up on a theme here, Derek Mason.
Yes.
A week from tomorrow, it certainly seems like Cam Ward is preparing, of course, to be the number 1 pick to the Tennessee Titans in the NFL draft. But I got a kick out of those clips when I saw them circulating on social media yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, what do you? He's been a pro. He's been a pro already. This is what you do. He's practicing being an NFL starting quarterback, a franchise guy. That's what he's practicing, y'all. Whether y'all believe it or y'all fell out of your chairs or y'all pulled over for a minute to catch your breath and to rewind, because you can't do that on radio now, can't you? I guess if you listen to it on the app, you can rewind it. So if you rewind it to see if you heard what you thought you heard. And yes, you heard it. He said Calvin Ridley is a dog. He'd take him over AJ.
AJ Brown's a dog, but he's
Yeah,
no
he
Calvin
said AJ
Ridley.
Brown the dog. So which makes him a lion, you know. He said Spears and Pollard were two of the top backs. I guarantee you, if they asked him, well, who's the best left tackle or tackle in the game or
He'd say,
guard
you
in
know
the
what?
game?
I'm a really big fan of that Dan Moore.
Exactly.
Big fan of Dan
Zeitler,
Moore.
I watched that run game with Detroit, and Zeitler was man on man. That guy's headed to the Hall
He's
of
a
Fame.
dog.
Exactly. So, people, he understands. Listen, this is how franchise quarterbacks talk about their players. They add them into the equation. Why? Giving them confidence, whether you think he's just blowing smoke or whatnot. It's a bigger picture. We can laugh at it, but he's strategically throwing that out there for a reason, okay? Because he wants these guys to come in knowing that, listen, man, I think y'all are damn good, man. Traylon Burks, nobody thinks anything of you, but I do. Let's get this, and that is what he's supposed to do as a quarterback, as a leader. That's what I've seen, from the guys that were considered leaders at the quarterback position that I played with. Stuff like that, encouragement, instead of he know good and well he didn't have to do that, but he went out of his way to do that because he knew it would get back to those guys.
By the way, there was a clip. We don't have it handy, but he was asked about his favorite coaches, and I believe Brian Callahan was
Exactly.
number one on the list as well. And something tells me, Derek, back in your day, that you and your quarterback weren't bonding over Twitch streams.
Hey,
It
you never know.
What was that? Map. Well, not about to say MapQuest. What was that other?
MapQuest?
No, the other. See, that tells you how old and
Remember when you had to print out directions? Remember when a GPS was the size of a flat screen TV?
It was like you were considered rich when you got a GPS.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Still, no,
they
I'm
weren't
talking
built
about,
into the cars.
what was Napster?
Napster.
Yes.
I was more of a LimeWire and Kazaa
okay.
guy myself when it came to downloading music under the table, so to speak. I hope the Recording Industry Association of America doesn't come after me for all of those
I think the statute of
albums I downloaded.
limitation is over with.
It's been 20 years.
You never know. You never know. It wasn't as easy to get your favorite song. And by the way, it's funny. I remember a time when I used to buy actual guides. You would buy a video game guide.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have a game, and then you'd have to go to either a gaming store or a bookstore, and there would actually be a guide for how to win the game. Now people just watch walkthroughs on YouTube. It's like kids these days.
I had the thick Laura Croft book that I had to read, Resident Evil book that I had to read.
Let me tell. Okay, we've got two varying thoughts on the Cam Ward Fortnite thing, which is perfect. Kevin says, I love it. To me, that's him putting guys on notice. Hey, I've got your back. I don't care what no one else thinks. I'm going to come in here and get it done with the guys we have. Damn, that makes me like him even more. Chip from Mount Juliet, on the other hand, Ward practicing extreme butt kissing, plain and simple.
Okay, see, that's the difference between leadership, someone knowing about leadership, and someone just thinks that he's doing this just to gain favor, in a sense. No, this is about leadership. This is not about gaining favor. He wants to let these guys know, like, listen, regardless if we're friends or not, regardless if we hang out every day or not, I hadn't even met either one of y'all, but I believe that they're going to draft me over number 1 overall, and we all going to be great together. That's what he believes. That's leadership. But again, I know it's funny. I get it. I laugh when you were saying it, even though I think Calvin Ridley, and I put the numbers against just about any of these receivers out here that are top 10 receivers. Calvin Ridley played his tail off last year. It started off slow, but he picked his game up, and he proved that he was worth the money that they're getting, at least for now. So when you look at Calvin Ridley, he is one of those guys. Like, is he? In my mind, can you stack him up to AJ Brown? No, And I'm not going to even try to do that. But I'm not going to sit here and don't believe this cat's a number one receiver.
By the
because
way,
he's proved it.
By the way, I am putting down some sort of wager. We are at BetMGM Sports Lounge, so I'm putting down some sort of wager. If the Titans draft Cam Ward and he's the starting quarterback, by week 3 of the NFL season, we will receive either a text message or a phone call on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com from someone saying, if only Cam Ward put down the Fortnite and studied the playbook instead. I'm guaranteeing it. I am guaranteeing it. If I could bet on that, I would do it. But I got a kick out of that. That's 2025 for you. So speaking of Cam Ward, the question a lot of Titans fans have, by the way, round 1 of the draft, a week from tomorrow, mercifully. By the way, we found out yesterday that Derek Mason, along with Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Trevor Maddich will be live at Twin Peaks in Madison for night 1 of the NFL draft for our annual draft show. A tradition like any other, Jared Stillman freaking out about something on draft night. So be sure to tune into that. That's next Thursday. Next Friday for the second day of the draft, Chase McCabe, Joe Rexrode, and Chris Sanders live out at Boombaz in East Nashville. We will have more details for you, but Derek Mason will be a part of draft night in Nashville once again. So one question that Titans fans have, or some Titans fans have, is can Cam Ward succeed in Tennessee? We've talked about this many times. Do the Titans have the infrastructure, the right players, the right coaches, the right management to make Cam Ward the best version of himself? And I was listening to the Inside Coverage podcast on Yahoo Sports featuring our old friend, Jason Fitz, Derek Mason's old co-host, our old friend, Jason Fitz, who joins Jared Stillman weekly on Stillman and Company. And he and his co-host were talking about bold predictions heading into the NFL draft. And Jason Fitz's prediction was that the Titans will ruin Cam Ward. This is what Jason Fitz had to say.
What I see is a coach that went out last year with a team that didn't have great expectations. The Titans weren't expected to be awesome last year, but they were not expected to be the worst team in football. And they were. And they weren't the worst team in football because of catastrophic injuries. They were the worst team in football because they were the worst. Like their talent, their coaching, their in-game situation, Will Levis, all of this played into why the Titans lost a boatload of football games. And I'm looking around and saying, to me, this is pretty clear. They're going to draft Cam Ward. And 1 year in, when the Titans suck again, they're going to fire Callahan and the GM's going to bring in his coach, who's then going to have to figure out the new system for Cam Ward. I feel like you can see it now from a mile away. By year 4, Cam Ward will be on his 3rd offensive language that he's had to learn in the league. He hasn't really found a way to flourish in this process. And a quarterback that I think with the right situation around him could turn out to be very, very good. Instead, never gets the weapons, never gets the protection, never gets the coaching, never gets the stability from an ownership group. The Titans are opening a new stadium in a couple of years, and they want to be able to trot out their quarterback as a superstar. And by then, they'll be looking in the draft again because they'll be on their 3rd GM and their 4th head coach and their 6th offensive coordinator or whatever the hell it's going to be by then. And Cam Ward's going to be sitting around here saying, guys, I didn't suck. You sucked, but you made me suck.
That was Jason Fitz on the Inside Coverage podcast on Yahoo Sports. By the way, before the clip we played, Fitz was talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he talked about the last can't-miss prospect coming out of the draft, I think at the quarterback position at least, was Trevor Lawrence. And he said that back then he predicted that the Jaguars would ruin Trevor Lawrence because of the lack of stability within the organization. Now, I wouldn't argue that Trevor Lawrence has been ruined. He certainly hasn't lived up to expectations, and some of the instability in the Jaguars organization may have played a role in it. But that's what led into what we heard. So, Derek, respond to your old co-host. The Titans will ruin Cam Ward, says Jason Fitz. Your thoughts?
Listen, I mean, he can say that, and he can possibly be right. Because it's not the first time that we've seen organization. It wouldn't be the first time we see an organization ruin quarterbacks, and we know how you ruin quarterbacks. It's there is a template on how you ruin quarterbacks. Here is the template. Here's how you do it. So in every instance where a quarterback has failed, it's those things that Fitz talked about. They were in play. Multiple coordinators, a bad team, not surrounding him with talent. The offensive line is bad. So we could take this template, pick it up, and any team that has not done well for the last 2 years and they are about to draft a quarterback, we can slap it on that team, regardless of who it is. You can give me any team. You can give me if Cleveland next year is bad and they get to the number one pick, what will we be saying about if they wanted to draft one of these top quarterbacks? They're going to ruin them anyway if they don't get the management right. Look at what they did. Look at what they put this quarterback. Look at the quarterback they brought in. Look at all offensive coordinators and head coaches. So there's a guide to how to. It's nothing made up anymore. Everybody knows it. It's out there to consume. My thing is this: Fitz is great at his job. I'm sure he follows, the game.
He keeps up with the Titans.
Yeah. But he has to keep up with other teams too.
Yes.
He's a national guy, and he's good at his job. But I know when you're a national guy, you're really not in the weeds with the team. You get a little bit here, a little bit there. You form your opinion. You kind of go from there based on the history. My thing is this: he said they're not surrounding him with individuals. Okay, but I'll push back on that. They got Calvin Ridley. Again, just look at the numbers, man. Once they got on that rapport, the guy, he showed he was a number one receiver. Do they need another guy? Yes, they do. They solidify in their minds the offensive line last year and this year, and they maybe do a little bit more in the draft. So they are solidifying the one spot that has hampered them that has been their Achilles heel, no matter who they had on the outside. Their Achilles heel has always been for the last 2.5, 3 years, the offensive line. So they went and they upgraded. So when you say they're not doing anything to help, yes, they are. Because they did this knowing that they were going to draft the quarterback number one, or they were going to draft the quarterback somewhere in that first round. So we got to do the things in free agency to make sure that guy that we get, he's ready to go. He has a better chance at succeeding than the guys have had prior to this. So they are surrounding him. But I do understand. Listen, I know this organization for whatever reason, and I've been in here and I've watched it closely and intently. This organization, for some reason, outside of Steve McNair, they have not been able to draft, develop, and retain a quarterback. Nobody. The closest was Mariota. He was the closest. He got that 5th year. Just think about that. You drafted first overall or in the top 5, like 2 or 3 quarterbacks, or let's say top 15, 3 quarterbacks or 4 quarterbacks, and no one got through their second contract. The closest was Marcus Mariota when they extended him the 5th year. That shows me that I know the people here now are not the same people, but they were going through their thing too. So it's an organizational thing to me. That's what it seems like. Until you figure out how to develop a quarterback, you're going to end up being in the same rotation. But I do believe that Brian Callahan, they went out and got him for a specific reason. And I believe Brian Callahan can get the job done. You can't make chicken salad with trash. You can't.
That's one way to put
it. And let me rephrase that, because I don't believe Will Levis is trash. You can't tell someone this is a steak when everybody knows it's a piece of chicken. Okay? I shouldn't have said that about Will Levis on the first hand, because he's not. He's good enough to play in this league, but not good enough as a starter. But you can't try to sell people or try to make a steak when it's chicken. That's what Brian Callahan was working with, so much so that when a head coach on the sideline and you're walking off the field and he asks you, what are you doing?
What the F are you doing?
And he had just went over what not to do. Is that a head coach or offensive coordinator problem? It's not. It's the quarterback's problem. And that happened more times than not. He took one step forward and would take 2 or 3 steps back. That is not Brian Callahan. Okay, it's not.
615-737-1025. You heard from Jason Fitz, our old buddy. He thinks the Titans will ruin Cam Ward. Do you agree? How concerned are you that the Titans will ruin Cam Ward? 615-737-1025. Derek, you talked about a template of how quarterbacks fail. Some interesting numbers about quarterbacks drafted and let's call it the hit rate of quarterbacks drafted. We are, after all, at the Atlanta Braves country road trip. So let's talk about some batting average per se. 615-737-1025. I will share those numbers coming up next. But before we do, speaking of baseball, tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte. Pregame begins at 5:20 and the first pitch is at 5:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D. Mace Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live inside BetMGM Sports Lounge, which is inside Bridgestone Arena for the Atlanta Braves country road trip. Come on out, watch some Braves baseball against the Toronto Blue Jays. Win some Predators tickets. Tonight is the Predators regular season finale against the Dallas Stars. Puck drop at 7. It's fan appreciation night, and let's be frank, you fans deserve to be appreciated after what you've had to endure this season with the local professional hockey team. But we're talking about what our old buddy Jason Fitz said on his Inside Coverage podcast on Yahoo Sports. He predicts the Titans will ruin Cam Ward. And I stumbled across this story this morning on The Athletic, written by Charlotte Carroll. When a quarterback struggles, how do teams know when to be patient or cut bait? NFL coaches weigh in. And she had some really fascinating numbers looking at the quarterback situations around the NFL. She writes, just look at the QBs who have been selected over the past 10 years. Excluding 2024, because it's too soon to judge that crop, 116 were drafted between 2014 and 2023. Many quarterbacks were taken after the first couple of rounds, but teams still drafted them in hopes that they would become meaningful contributors to their franchises. Unfortunately, most haven't. Of those 116, just 15 are expected to serve as starters this season for the team that drafted them this season. And the historic 2020 NFL draft, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts is doing most of the heavy lifting there. If you exclude quarterbacks still playing on their rookie contracts, only 13 of the remaining 93 still play for the team that drafted them. Most of the rest aren't even in the NFL anymore. That doesn't mean those QBs were busts or that those still on teams won't eventually enjoy some measure of success in the NFL. But for many quarterbacks selected next week, the success, if it ever comes, won't be with the team that picked them. And there are some really interesting thoughts in here from Mike McDaniel and Kevin O'Connell. And we'll talk more about that. But, with the idea that the Titans are going to ruin, quote unquote, Cam Ward, I think the general consensus, and again, I looked at all of these big boards today because I think the final wave of those big boards came out, and you still see Cam Ward 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in terms of overall prospects. And again, I know I've said this a lot, and thankfully I won't have to say it again maybe after next Thursday. Here's hoping. There are Titans fans that are concerned, or who are concerned, that Cam Ward isn't good enough of an overall prospect to be the number one pick. But when you look at these numbers from Charlotte Carroll, it's incredibly difficult for any team to find success with a quarterback who gets drafted. So the odds are, according to these numbers from Charlotte Carroll, the odds are stacked against most teams. And we'll get into some of the reasons why things work, but to see those numbers and the small amount of quarterbacks that are playing pivotal roles for the teams that drafted them, I find that to be quite interesting.
Yes, it's there's not an exact science. That's what they're trying to tell you. And now every situation has had, it's sort of things that have occurred to either help the quarterback or hinder the quarterback. There are some of those guys on the list that, like Joe Burrow, didn't have to go through the constant, changing of head coaches and offensive coordinators. And that's and that's why I said Fitz is right from the standpoint of this is the the template or this is the guide to how to destroy a quarterback. And you get there faster when you do some of these things or all of these things. Now you may be able to get away with one or two, but sometimes even that slows the development of a quarterback down. So, again, this is not an exact science. They're looking at past traits or traits that they see the play, and they try to guesstimate on, if that's even a word, I believe it is, but and it's a calculated guess, that's what it is, whether this guy is going to succeed or not. A lot more emphasis is put on the first pick in a quarterback. Why? Because they are essentially, the face and the heartbeat of the team, more than likely. So you want it more times than not. You want to get that right. You want to try to be to as perfect as you can when evaluating. But even that doesn't stop the Jamarcus Russells of the world, the Ryan Leafs. I know he didn't get drafted number 1 overall, but he was a top 2 pick. The Ryan Leafs of the world, or the David Carrs of the world. Is it David Carr? Yeah, Derek is playing now. The David Carrs of the world. That's what you're going to get. So you try to minimize, the disruptions you're going to have in developing this quarterback. And that's what the Titans are going to be tasked with doing. That's why I say, when you look at this team, don't judge it by its record. Judge it by its development of the quarterback.
So you said it's not an exact science.
No.
This is a quote from Miami Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel in this story by Charlotte Carroll in The Athletic. Quote, "This is not a science experiment. If you just take the results, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to missing out on people who can be very adept at their job. The quarterback position has a lot of uncontrollables that you're at the mercy of. So you try to do your best to put yourself in the player's situation and evaluate from that standpoint. And often that can lead to, okay, we need to give this guy another chance." And the question a lot of people have, one texter, by the way, on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com says, "Why won't local media hold Brian Callahan accountable? He was brought in as an offensive guru, given a $92 million receiver, and couldn't even scheme up targets to him, on top of his inability to develop a quarterback over the season." So you hear that quote from Mike McDaniel about there are a lot of uncontrollables that you're at the mercy of, so you try to do your best to put yourself in the player's situation and evaluate from that standpoint. The question a lot of Titans fans have is Brian Callahan the kind of coach who can find those uncontrollables and then put, presumably, Cam Ward in the best situation to succeed? And by the way, to answer the texter's question, why won't local media hold Brian Callahan accountable? I mean, we're not yelling and screaming for him to be fired. My viewpoint on it is this when it comes to Callahan. His record is what it is. In his first season as an NFL head coach, his team has the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. That's not good. But I've said this many times before. Derek alluded to it in the previous segment. I truly believe that Will Levis was beyond development in certain aspects of his game. You mentioned the infamous sideline interaction where Will Levis, I can't remember which turnover it was, but he's coming off the field. Yes, he's coming off the field, and Brian Callahan is caught on the camera saying, "Hey, what the F are you doing?" I've likened Will Levis to my 3-year-old son many times, where I've said, "Arlo, don't do that," and he'll say, "I'm gonna do it." That's how I feel with Will Levis. So did Brian Callahan get the best out of Will Levis? Obviously not. But I legitimately wonder how many coaches could have gotten the best out of Will Levis, which is why I do hope that the Titans draft Cam Ward, which they probably will. And I want to see Brian Callahan work with Cam Ward. I want to see Brian Callahan have another opportunity to develop a young quarterback. So that's why I'm not pounding the table saying that Brian Callahan is the worst coach that ever existed in NFL history.
No, he's not. I mean, to the texters, what he said in regards to, Callahan not being able to scheme up, plays for Calvin Ridley. Again, when you have a quarterback that can't properly read things. Now, I'm not going to say it was all, like it was 100% Will Levis.
To be clear, I am not absolving Brian Callahan of blame. He played a role in this. He is responsible for this. He is the head coach. But when I think of why Will Levis did not pan out last season, I'm not heaping most of the blame on Brian Callahan.
No, well, I think Will Levis proved that he's not a starting quarterback, and I'm going to leave it at that. When you say he doesn't know how to scheme up, that tells me you've really been watching these games intently. And if you have, then I would wonder from what vantage point are you watching it? Are you watching it from the TV vantage point? Because if you're watching a game from a vantage point, you see everything that's going on. And maybe, this person doesn't have the ability to see that. But just because a pass isn't thrown his way, meaning Calvin Ridley, doesn't mean they didn't scheme that up for him. Either the defense just probably read it well because he's the number one guy, or something happened within that play that got the quarterback off of him. I am sure when they go into the offensive meeting rooms, I'm gonna tell you this because I've had experience in this for a lot of years. Hey, what do you like, Mace? What do you and a quarterback feel good with? At the beginning of the week, I know what plays are meant for me, and I know what plays are meant for everybody else in the passing game. And when you are the number one guy, a bulk of the passing game, you are the primary guy. So I'm sure that Ridley was the primary guy in a lot of their pass options. He and the quarterback were they were not on the same page, at least at the beginning. And then they started to pick it up. I told everyone 2 days ago, everyone that was listening, I'm going to reiterate it again because maybe there are people that were not listening at that time, and I understand that part. Calvin Ridley was 5th in the NFL in big plays. He had 19 big plays. The leader was Jefferson with 28, I believe. And then it started to go down from there. But he was 5th, tied for 5th in the National Football League on big explosive plays from the wide receiver position. The next closest person on his team was Pollard. Okay? He's doing what he can do, Ridley. And they are calling and scheming things up. But when you only have really one guy that has proven he's going to go out there and get it, teams key in on that. So I'm not going to sit here and say they didn't scheme for Ridley because I'm sure they did. But defenses also played the defense to try to take him away. Quarterback maybe didn't read it well at times. And maybe at times, Brian Callahan just called the wrong play.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your reaction as we approach the first round of the NFL draft 1 week from tomorrow. Talking Cam Ward, your thoughts. Are you concerned that the Titans will ruin Cam Ward, as Jason Fitz said? And we will replay that clip. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
What I see is a coach that went out last year with a team that didn't have great expectations. The Titans weren't expected to be awesome last year, but they were not expected to be the worst team in football, and they were. And they weren't the worst team in football because of catastrophic injuries. They were the worst team in football because they were the worst. Like their talent, their coaching, their in-game situation, Will Levis, all of this played into why the Titans lost a boatload of football games. And I'm looking around and saying, to me, this is pretty clear. They're going to draft Cam Ward. And 1 year in, when the Titans suck again, they're going to fire Callahan, and the GM's going to bring in his coach, who's then going to have to figure out the new system for Cam Ward. I feel like you can see it now from a mile away. By year 4, Cam Ward will be on his 3rd offensive language that he's had to learn in the league. He hasn't really found a way to flourish in this process. And a quarterback that I think with the right situation around him could turn out to be very, very good. Instead, never gets the weapons, never gets the protection, never gets the coaching, never gets the stability from an ownership group. The Titans are opening a new stadium in a couple of years, and they want to be able to trot out their quarterback as a superstar. And by then, they'll be looking in the draft again because they'll be on their 3rd GM and their 4th head coach and their 6th offensive coordinator or whatever the hell it's going to be by then. And Cam Ward's going to be sitting around here saying, guys, I didn't suck. You sucked, but you made me suck.
That was our old friend Jason Fitz on the Inside Coverage podcast on Yahoo Sports. His bold prediction, the Titans will ruin Cam Ward. Willie Donick has made it to the Atlanta Braves country road trip. He tried to wear his Mets hat, but it was confiscated at the door. He has been presented with a Braves jersey, by the way.
Yes.
What you said was pretty cool.
They left off his last name.
I like the look that they did. I do not like the City Connect uniforms in general. Am I on?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
you
are. There you are.
On.
I'm not a big fan of the City Connect jerseys in most cases, but I think the Braves have a good one here. I like the alternate logo.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Braves regular uniform. For me and the Braves, I'm a Met fan through and through. When I was growing up, the Braves were in the NL West and not the East. The Braves have always, not always, because the Mets beat them last year in one of the greatest games of the year at the very end to get into the playoffs, and the Braves still made the playoffs. There was that weird doubleheader. I don't dislike the Braves the way I do Yankees. There's a bigger rival, Phillies. I've been in this area. I've been to a lot of Braves games. So I'm not just saying this because we're having a Braves party here, but I've always respected the Braves. I don't hate them. Now, I root against them when the Mets are playing. So I'm thankful for the jersey.
What I need David to do is just clip the part in that monologue where he said, I like the Braves. Out of context, just clip that. Send that to Flushing Meadows right now. Send it to Teron Davenport.
Exactly.
Send it to all of the Mets fans
I'm just gonna post that clip, just like of him saying, "Oh yeah, I like the Braves."
Yeah, and then there'll be a picture that D Mace took of me holding the jersey.
Exactly.
And now I got a big problem on my hands.
We do have to revoke your Mets fandom
Yeah.
card, but you hear that cut from Jason Fitz on the Inside Coverage podcast on Yahoo Sports. And I want to answer this question from a texter that is related. It says, so in y'all's opinion, is it more likely that the Titans ruin Cam Ward, or is it more likely he doesn't work out because he might not be 1-1 caliber? Willie, why don't you start?
I love Fitzy. You can put that out of context too. That's a little hyperbole. I mean, that's like worst case scenario. Let me get a lot of people's attention with this hot take kind of thing. I mean, he's got the thing predicted for 3 years. I don't think they're going to have 4 GMs by the time the
You never
stadium opens
know.
up.
You never know.
I don't. No, I don't. I pretty much know.
I know,
I don't
being
think by the
tongue-in-cheek.
time that happens, I'd bet that. I'm not a betting man, but I would take that. So I get his point, and that general theme has, I think, put a hurting on a lot of quarterbacks over the years, where it has made it really hard for quarterbacks to succeed. And that's why I think I would rather them trade out of that spot and build the roster in a perfect world. But I don't know that option is going to present itself very well before it's all over. So they're going to have to make do. But I don't think this first year is going to be an easy one for Cam Ward, the Titans, and Brian Callahan. And I hope they are able to look beyond that when they have a fair evaluation of Brian Callahan, because it is easy to say, hey, they lost again, fire the coach. I just think that's always the low-hanging fruit, and I don't think that's the right move. But we'll cross these bridges as we come to them. If they feel like Cam Ward is the right guy to pick, they should pick him.
If they feel they got the structure, again, because, when statements are made like that, you're implying that the Titans haven't done anything to upgrade their team from last year. But they have. They went out and, whether you agree with them or not.
They still need receivers.
Yeah,
that's one thing they absolutely need.
But they went out and they put J.C. Latham at probably, especially in his adult years, they put him at the position that they feel, he will have success at, and they put him on the right side. Then they go out and get more. Now, whether more turns out to be worth the contract or not, hey, we'll find out. But you went out and got you a guy that can play left tackle, a guy that's a legitimate left tackle. You went out and got you a guard. Cushenberry comes back next year from his injury. So you are fortifying that offensive line. You went out last year and you got Calvin Ridley. Yes, you got to draft another receiver. Absolutely. But you went out, and I think Jefferson Vance is going to be a really good third receiver if he picks up the offense well and he stays healthy. So they're trying systematically or slowly to build things around Cam Moore, who we assume they're going to draft. So again, that's Fitz, who's a national guy, great at his job. But when you say that about the Titans, you got to look at the moves that they made in this offseason. And the moves that they made this offseason does signify whether it works or not. That's a different story. But it signifies that they are trying to upgrade the positions.
Of course, they're trying.
Yeah.
They just have so many holes to fill. You can't fill them that quick.
Exactly. So
but
I think people
have to hope
snap
that
their fingers and every hole be filled.
I think the hope is if you have a good offensive line, that would help a lot.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to solidify that offensive line.
Even if they don't have the great receivers, I'd rather have a good offensive line and below average wide receivers as a whole than the opposite.
Yeah.
Above average wide receivers and a well below average offensive line. I think
we saw
you can build. You don't need to win every game if you're going to put a rookie quarterback in there. You want the quarterback to have a chance to grow.
Absolutely. Nicholas Petit-Frere is not going to have to play games, hopefully, this coming season. So that in and of itself is an improvement. And there are other things the Titans absolutely need to do. They need more help at receiver. They need help at edge rusher. They need
linebacker.
Yes, they have a lot of things to fill, a lot of holes to fill, I should say, and the draft will play a part in that. But I always find it like this is my favorite part of these sorts of conversations. And Willie, you weren't here yet. We started the show by playing the cuts from the Fortnite stream that Cam Ward did yesterday, talking about his favorite players in the NFL, and he name dropped a lot of Titans players. And we had one texter says, "I love that about Cam Ward. He's standing up for his guys." And then there was another texter who said, "That's extreme butt kissing." So we have one texter who says, "That's not a hot take at all. In fact, it's the most likely outcome." Another texter that says, "What a horrible take by Fitz." That's what I love about the discussion.
Well, Fitz has predicted the next 3 years of the future. I mean, that's hard. That's not easy to do. But it just shows that right now, when you've been losing, you get a reputation, and you've made a lot of knee-jerk, rash decisions. Right? You've done some about-facing. You don't get the benefit of the doubt, and you get takes like that. So Fitz is from 10,000 feet. I don't blame him at all for thinking that it's certainly a possibility, right? Their track record the last couple of years hasn't been good.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts as the NFL draft approaches a week from tomorrow. But today, the spring transfer portal has opened. And some interesting new reporting that Willie Donick has shared with us on Nico Iamaleava. We will get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. You can win an exclusive Keith Urban experience by texting in the keyword Keith, Keith, to 615-737-1025 and receive a link to sign up for a chance to win all-inclusive tickets to the Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena to see Keith Urban, plus a chance to win $1,000 cash.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto has the ability to get you money fast. Okay, it's through your home's equity. If you're a homeowner, interest rates have gone down, and you've got an opportunity now, and it only takes a couple of weeks, sometimes even less, to make this happen. So what you need to do, if you're looking for cash to start a home improvement project or to pay some bills, pick up the phone and call Loan Pronto at 615-499-5780. Or go to loanpronto.com. Do that smart thing. Stop paying insane rates on credit cards. Or if you want to make that home more valuable, don't waste any more time. Fund it through your home's equity and make your home even more valuable. 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Most homeowners get their cash in less than 2 weeks, and most don't even need an appraisal. And if you do this right, you'll probably save about $1,000 per month on your monthly budget. You got to like that. Loanpronto.com or 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at the BetMGM Sports Lounge for the Atlanta Braves country road trip. The Braves are about to start against the Toronto Blue Jays. Come out, watch some baseball, win some Predators tickets. We have some new news, I guess you could say. The spring transfer portal is open. And yesterday, Pete Nakos of On3 Sports, who has been at the forefront of all of this reporting about Nico Iamaleava, said that he's entered the transfer portal with a do not contact tag, which basically means, as you said today, Willie, don't call me, I'll call you. And within the hour, On3 also reported, Pete Nakos did, that UCLA is holding strong on its offer to Nico Iamaleava, which is significantly less than $4 million. The relationship between UCLA and Iamaleava's camp is unique after Nico's brother flipped from the Bruins to Arkansas on signing day. Let's bring in Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Hutton, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this Nico Iamaleava situation, so I'll let you dictate where we go on your thoughts on this entire situation that's transpired over the past several days.
Pure craziness. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
Hope things are well. My biggest question in all of this is, because look, this is the Nico Iamaleava saga, right? But it sounds like this is Big Nick's saga too.
His dad.
Yeah, his dad, and then I don't want to call him an agent. It's more like a handler. I view this agent, quote unquote, as like a Mike Moo, Willie. That's kind of the sense I get just talking to people. Is it's really the father, and then I don't know pretend to know the dynamic there between him and his son or whatever, but it is bizarre. My biggest question though is, if you're going to play and use this leverage, normally you'd have some sense that you're going to get the offer on the market that you think you're going to ask Tennessee for. And that just simply wasn't the case. I mean, it's not like I think this is a great example of the haves and the have-nots, even in the big money college football NIL right now. Tennessee can pay some of the top dollar type money, but there are very few who can, especially this time of year, with a cap coming, or at least we perceive coming, and the $4 million price tag. It's not like everybody can just pony up. You've got Chip Kelly, who didn't want to be the head coach of UCLA. So, yeah, the fact he's getting less, I'm not surprised by that. Soon, Middle Tennessee State University will be in line.
My question for you, Hutton, was, so reportedly North Carolina is out. Tulane is out. I just read the report
right
about
on
you.
The price tag.
Right, on the price tag. UCLA wants him to take less. Where do you think he ultimately ends up, and how much do you think he gets paid at the end of the day?
I mean, I don't know how much he gets paid, Adam. He's going to get paid less than what he was going to make. I mean, why bid against yourself right now? If you're a university, you just wait on the price tag to come down. They're the ones demanding or believe they're at a certain value, when the value he was making, while it may be less just on the surface level, 30,000-foot view right now of NIL for the quarterback. I mean, the shock and awe of whenever he came out of high school and that price tag that was being reported versus the number now versus what Duke's paid. I mean, sure, we've heard more money there, but not in terms of what have you done. You know, if he's a great quarterback right now in the college football landscape, Tennessee probably pays him. Let's just be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever was going on behind the scenes for as long as it was, and the demands and now the reports that are coming out, it wasn't worth that. And so good for Tennessee for not paying. I wonder where we would be today if they did, because we wouldn't know the detail here like we do now, and what it would mean for the other coaches moving forward. Had Oregon needed a quarterback, he'd be the head coach. He'd be the quarterback at Oregon. Like, just that's college football today. And the fact that the portal window is where it is, that's why the timing is why it is. and when it is. But all of that being said, this is behind the scenes mismanagement from a management group, team, small group of people, including a parent, who negotiated and maneuvered Nico to Knoxville in the first place 2 years ago. And now we're here because of mismanagement. So Tennessee would have known the dynamic of that. It's not like things changed all that drastically in 2 years from the business of how this has been handled to now is fascinating. There's more to the story. And I think more or less it just became, we're tired of this because this is an every week, every month, every season. When I say season, it's summer, winter, fall, spring occurrence. And, you're not going to get more than what we're giving you here, which means we're not going to negotiate against ourselves. We're not giving you the raise. Have fun. And now it's turned into what it is where, it's he's going to get far less, Adam. And it's not going to be something that I think is beneficial for the quarterbacks moving forward if, in fact, they're just wanting to get money. And I say quarterbacks because I don't think this is another position to position. I think the quarterbacks is or who is really affected by this if they want to play the leverage holdout game. This is just not going to work.
Jonathan Hutton is with us. And Hut, I just keep going back to the same main point is I think the biggest reason to transfer should not be getting extra money. It is to get into a better situation. If you're in a good situation, it just doesn't make sense to leave, even if you're going to get some more money. It's not like they recruited over him. There's big competition. He's in a good spot. To give up that seat is tough, and we'll see if he can recreate that. But I had not really heard any perspective from anybody from his camp until I read this article from Front Office Sports. And so I want to hit you with this part. Because this, I think, is another interesting window. It's not from his dad directly, but it's a, quote, friend who is familiar with sort of representing. Because you've only had these sort of references on social media. Hey, the story's wrong. But you haven't really heard anything. So it says in the article, the dispute dates back to December when the Vols got knocked out by Ohio State. Iamaleava's representatives had a conversation with head coach Josh Heupel and explained what they would need in order for Iamaleava to stay. And that's where I start.
Right.
My first thought is, this is what it's going to take you to stay? I thought everything was going pretty well. You just made the playoffs. But that's just my take. But it continues by saying, this is a friend who is familiar, sort of characterizing this conversation, says, quote, Big Nick, or Neek, I don't know how he goes by, we want you guys to reassure us, the Iamaleava camp, that you're going to recruit and get the O-line right, that you're going to go out there and you're going to get receivers, the friend said. Iamaleava had suffered multiple concussions, 2 cracked helmets during the course of the 2024 season. The family friend denies that the conversations had anything to do with money. So let's say that that's true. Let's say that that's true. And I don't know if it is because it's disputed within the article. So other sources are saying there was a lot of discussion about money. But I think it's very tough. Josh Heupel, I think it should be a given. You would think wants to make his team better in all of the phases of the game, right? The offensive line, the receivers, etc. So again, I look at the perspective and I say, man, that is tough. I cannot imagine going to a head coach and saying, yeah, I'll stay if you get the offensive line right and the receivers right. That quote just blew me away.
Oh, and by the way, it is about the money. They allocated money to other players in order to impact Nico. They outbid Ohio State for the top offensive lineman in the country. It is about the money. The transfer portal, they brought in offensive linemen. They kept a wide receiver that Nico wanted to keep. It is about the money. So, like, I will go back to that. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the quarterback's money, but it does impact the money that you're distributing to the rest of your roster, Willie, right? Like that to me is what that was about. And after Tennessee did these things, and oh, by the way, they're preparing for a college football playoff game. Then you have this entire spring where we're not hearing about this, but yet everybody, I say everybody, most are saying that there were rumblings beneath the surface about Nico and the portal. And so did they have 2 straight days off? The players do. There's a team meeting or a positional meeting. The wide receivers get together, quarterbacks get together. Everything seems fine on a Thursday night. Then he doesn't show on Friday. The whole timeline there is bizarre, considering this is also a player who played in the college football playoff game, was a tough player in that game. Didn't play great, but stood in there. And despite demands that, we need to do this or that, or we're leaving, or consider leaving, he was participating in the spring practices. It sounds like it was an instant removal from a father and a rep behind the scenes that overplayed their hand because they got called on the carpet for a deadline. The deadline would have been spring game, and all this came out the day before. I just think Tennessee said, okay, we've done these things. We're not giving you more money because we're not. You're good, not great. We've upgraded the offensive line. We've kept receivers for you. Stop this. No, the deadline. I think they felt like the deadline was real, and they got a 24-hour head start on it. And initially everyone was mad at Pete Nakos, and within 24 hours, now it's the WWE storyline is the good guy is Tennessee, bad guy Team Nico, and right now the rest of the football landscape is treating it like, yeah, you're not going to get what you're demanding because we're negotiating against ourselves.
I think this is something that has happened that has sort of it's almost like red meat in a sense. And I'm not saying that UT did this on purpose or Nico did it on purpose, but for all those that are with paying students, but they want them to just have a couple of extra dollars to go to the movies or buy dinner somewhere. That's how much money they want them to have. But when it seems like you're asking for too much, now all of the momentum shifts back to the universities and the ADs. And I just think, unfortunately, unless something changes, it may continue to flop back again to the players, because then again, wrong player. I think it was the right move, wrong player, right time. There's going to be a moment where a guy comes up and he's worth that.
Sure.
It's going to be put on display once again. Now, whatever university, because it's not UT, it may be Alabama. And if Alabama chooses to say, hey, listen, we're going to pay the cat, now everyone else works from that premise.
Okay, but again, D-Mace, let's say they have that leverage. And I agree. There would be cases, as Hutton pointed out, if he had played to a certain level and they had won another playoff game or two, he would have been even more in a position to have leverage for money. Mm-hmm. But I think a coach also has to draw a line. This is another quote from the friend. Last week, so after they had hashed all of this out from the end of the season until last week, coaches called, this is according to the article, Front Office Sports, coaches called Nico into multiple meetings to ask whether he intended to transfer because he still hasn't committed. Mm-hmm. He replied, this is not a quote from Nico. This is a secondhand from the friend of Nico. As long as they brought in the recruits he pushed for, he was all in on the Vols. So he's waiting in the spring practice to wait if they're bringing in the recruits he pushed for. Like, how much can you put aside for a quarterback? Even if Nico was a superstar, do you allow him to now dictate who's on your roster?
I would
forget about the money. Forget about the money.
Listen, I feel this way, Hut.
Who's running the program?
I don't blame Heupel.
No one.
Because Heupel isn't in control of the money. So he can push. But ultimately, Heupel had to make a decision. And I think Heupel made the best decision for his team at this particular time. Now, there may be a situation that comes up where he's going to have to side with the player and say, y'all need to pay this guy. But at this present time, don't get me wrong, I think Josh Heupel made the right decision.
Well, so we'll find out, because in the fall,
Yeah, if they start losing, that's another scenario that I
ask
throw out there.
Alabama. All of a sudden, Saban left, and I heard Alabama fans like, "Oh, we'll be okay with a season of 4 losses." And sure. Again, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. Here's the thing, Willie. Let's keep in mind this timeline too. Dan Lanning is reportedly the coach who called Heupel, saying, "Hey, behind the scenes, they're sniffing around trying to figure out about the portal and whether or not big time programs want a quarterback."
I'm not cool with that either.
They're asking those questions right now. Hey, are you going to the portal? Like, what are you doing here? Because they're hearing directly through college football channels of what's being back channeled right before the portal opens. They need assurances because they need to prepare for the portal too. Tennessee's about to turn around right now and do the exact same thing. They're going to pluck a quarterback out of the portal. It's not about the money. It's about the player and about what you're willing to put up with. And the way the business is handled. Like a year from now, we'll look back on a $2 million to $4 million jump, and we may laugh at it because we're not really. I haven't mentioned what Nico's getting paid to sit the bench his first year, but that's just part of the game. It's I can't tell you what others are making on Tennessee's roster. By and large, we don't know, but we know this public story because he has been the face of the entire saga of name, image, likeness, specifically with Spire Sports in Knoxville and Tennessee, going back to when they recruited him to the state of Tennessee, filing a lawsuit against the NCAA. So the player has the ability to do just this, to now the head coach saying $4 million for what? And it is clearly if Oregon needed a quarterback, Dan Lanning's not calling Josh Heupel to tell him about it.
And that's my whole thing. Like, dude, like, why are you calling this? Because if he was trying to come to your university,
okay,
I get it different. But my thing is,
West
dude,
Coast.
you're gonna, I get that. But my thing is, dude, what you're doing now, I think, Landing getting himself into this by notifying, Heupel or asking Heupel or reportedly, warning Heupel. Your own players are going to look at that and say, you know what? I'm just transferring. I ain't going to have a talk with anybody. I'm just transferring because if I think about transferring and tell you, then you may tell your next guy, oh, he may be transferring. You may try to muddy the waters in that sense. So these guys, the decisions that coaches and players are making as we sit now in real time, they're going to have huge ramifications either way.
But there's no ethics anywhere.
No.
It's Wild West, and so I think when you have that, I think people panic. I think, like, what do we do? Like, this is out of control. What do we do?
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of that. So let's talk about where
Willie,
Tennessee is.
quick.
Go ahead. Yeah,
really quick. Just one sentence. If Tennessee found a quarterback that was worth $4 million right now, they would offer him to transfer. This is going to help them win.
Interesting. Well,
Right?
okay, so let's talk about where they are and who's out there, because again, in the Wild West, I think we know for a fact, and we're not naming any specific schools, but a guy's name doesn't have to be in the portal for a lot of phone calls to be made to say, hey, if you were to go in the portal, X dollars might be out there for you if you don't like your situation. Do you think that's what Tennessee is going to do here?
Yes. I mean, again, I started all this.
So you think they will pluck somebody off of somebody's roster who's not in the portal today?
Well, I don't know about the updated portal, Willie. I don't know about I'll say that other quarterbacks are being represented like this, other players too, and they know there's a $2.5 million opening at least. And one of the top premier programs it's the best spot for a quarterback landing spot right now. If you want to move for the money or for the opportunity, it's a great opportunity.
If you want pressure
now into this very small window, and keep in mind that with this, I opened by saying I didn't feel like Nico's reps would make this move unless they knew there was another offer more than what Tennessee was paying him right now for leverage. Right? You would know you had a backup plan. And UCLA doesn't seem to me, whatever. That doesn't seem like a great leverage play given their financial status. To me, Tennessee has been putting up with this. Tennessee outbid everyone else 2 years ago. They've played this game before with Nico's reps, and they were tired of it. To me, Tennessee doesn't make this move. And by the way, they were getting and paying other recruits to appease Nico just months ago. They got better up front, but they still brought in players that he wanted, and they improved. Point being, Tennessee doesn't make this move unless they had someone in mind, do they? Now, it could be the backups, but it could be in the portal. And you don't make a splash move right now because if you do it today, it's tampering. There's no wide open legal tampering period. If you make an immediate move at 12:01 when the portal opens at noon, well, clearly you didn't negotiate that very well. So I want to wait and see, what names get out there because we really haven't heard much in that regard. But that's not like Tennessee's been ahead of the game for name, image, likeness. It's hard for me to think that they're flat-footed right now, given the decision they made last Friday to make this public.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick as he does every Wednesday at noon. Hutton, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll chat next week.
Hey, what if Tennessee now goes and pays a quarterback $4 million?
Well, they probably would have tampered to do it. So the high and mighty, hey, nobody's bigger than the program. Well, they're going to purge somebody else's quarterback and break the heart of that. So they'll do what they've got to do. That's how it would play to me.
Hutton, as I've explained it, to quote professional wrestler CM Punk, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. That's what I've said all week.
How about buying Oregon's quarterback for $4 million? How would Lanning feel about that after Lanning? Hey, buddy. Hey, this
by
is
the
your
way,
buddy
we've
Lanning.
been talking to your quarterback too, and we didn't tell you because we want him.
Right.
Thanks, Hutton.
All right. See you guys.
615-737-1025. Let's dig a little bit deeper.
I did see somebody put a story out there like Diego Pavia is deciding to stay. Like, it's like every quarterback.
Just to be safe.
I'm sure every coach is going to their quarterback. You are staying, right? You're staying. But there's phone calls out there. There's
Absolutely.
burner phones. It's happening.
Burner phones. It's like I'm watching an episode of The Wire here. 615-737-1025. Let's dig in a little bit more into that reporting that Willie was referencing from Front Office Sports. Also, an interesting story about Nico Iamaleava on ESPN, written by Pete Thamel and Max Olson, that we'll touch on coming up next. Get your thoughts in as well. 615-737-1025. Live from BetMGM Sports Lounge. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025-1063. The Game.
Happy Hump Day. Yes, Wednesday. It is Wednesday. So, and I'm here to tell you about my good friends over at Cool Springs MD because I've been talking about them for a long time now. So, if you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment or come up a few pounds short. But I got some solutions because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
This is what happens when you place people in leadership roles that the NCAA did, and then you just open the door. Because while you say Stephen A., and I understand the point of, well, he's got to honor his contract, when you leave the opportunity for that person not having to honor the contract by allowing other doors to be opened by other places offering you more money, no one in their right mind is going to just say, no, I don't want another $1.7 or $1.8 million. Because if you can get it, you're going to go get it. That's just the reality of human beings. And I don't love it for the young man, again, because it's contrary to everything I know. I don't love it for the locker room. And Feinbaum's right that this is the inflection point, because it's the first time that a high leverage player has impacted the locker room, and the locker room has felt that loss. And this is the first time, at least again, a high leverage player, the coach is like, well, go. Well, we're not gonna bow the knee to you. So this does change it, but this is such a flaw by the leadership of the NCAA, and the fact that grown adults allowed this to happen because it was coming and everyone knew it. They should be ashamed that now this young man is going to get targeted and pinpointed as the person being selfish when he's a kid still. Whether he's getting treated financially as an adult or not, he's still a kid.
That was Dan Orlovsky on First Take a couple of days ago talking about Nico Iamaleava. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's dig a little bit more into this story that Willie referenced with Hutton from Front Office Sports. So as Willie read, the name of the article, the headline of the article, I should say, is Inside Nico Iamaleava's Ugly Breakup with Tennessee. And as Willie noted, there's a section in the story that says the dispute dates all the way back to December of 2024, when the Vols got knocked out of the college football playoff. Iamaleava's representatives had a conversation with Josh Heupel and explained what they would need in order for Iamaleava to stay. This according to a friend of the family. Big Nick, Iamaleava's dad, said, according to the friend, we want you guys to reassure us that you're going to recruit and get the O-line right, that you're going to get out there, you're going to go out there, and you're going to get receivers, the friend said. Iamaleava had suffered multiple concussions and 2 cracked helmets through the course of the 2024 season. The family friend denies that these conversations had anything to do with money, but a different source with knowledge of those conversations says that Iamaleava's camp did ask Spire Sports for a raise at the time, and that the collective made multiple counteroffers. Iamaleava's camp became increasingly unresponsive and ultimately left the organization confused about whether he would in fact enter the transfer portal.
There's a lot going on here.
This will be a 30 for 30 one day.
Yeah.
This will be a 30 for 30 one day.
One thing, listen, Heupel in the university lucked out, because I know, again, this is when, you hear national guys, which do a great job, especially national guys that don't follow college football like that, and local guys that do or follow it somewhat, the local teams here. Iamaleava didn't play like an elite quarterback. He didn't. So when you say, Heupel said no to an elite level quarterback, no, he's not. Why do you think Heupel said no? Because he's not an elite level quarterback. Okay? So again, let's not make it seem like, Nico was, the best receiver or a top 5 receiver within the conference, let alone the country. He wasn't even close to that. So when you're not close to that, but in your mind or in your camp's mind, they believe, yeah, because y'all went to the playoffs, so yeah, you are a high-level quarterback. When they think that, then this is what you're going to get. If Heupel felt that he was high-level elite quarterback, Heupel would have kept him. The group would have kept him. They would have said, okay, we're going to find a way to pay this young man his money. But he's not that. So what are we truly arguing here? Because he's not the guy that is going to really put or stress whatever system they have out there. Iamaleava wasn't the guy. He doesn't stress it whatsoever. So Heupel can say, you know what? No, you go about your business. The collective can say, no, you go about your business. And no, there's no pressure there. The fan base is on our side. Why? Because you're not an elite quarterback. It's not going to be until, we flop this season. I'm not saying UT will do that, but it's hypothetically. They flop this season, then the decision that you made, it may come back to bite you. Or if Nico goes somewhere and have a great season, then it's going to come back and bite you if you don't make it to the college playoff, college football playoff, and move further than what you got last year. So are we truly talking about the system finally will get changed, or finally there will be some true initiative to change it? Or are we just looking at a situation, based on a team that went to the playoffs last year and a quarterback that outplayed his hand?
The point I would like to make today is I get what you're saying, D-Mace. If there's no real rules and it's just, hey, his value has gone up, that's one thing. But here's where I sympathize with coaches. The coaches a lot of times are made out to be the bad guys here. They're just bad people needing to win, having to win. And there is a lot of pressure there. Because the bottom line is if Heupel doesn't find another quarterback now, he's going to be in trouble. But remember, Tennessee paid this kid a lot of money his senior year in high school. So they went with an unprecedented offer to him a year before he was even going to get on the campus. Then he sat for an entire year, basically. So they paid him, about $4 million before he ever took a significant snap. So when you do that, you've invested so much, you're kind of beholden. And all of a sudden now the kid starts saying, well, hey, how about getting me this receiver? How about and you've invested all this money. It's a tough position to be in. But
if you go out and do that, isn't a win? It's a win-win
it almost
for
has to be an
everybody.
agreement. Look, we're paying you this money, but remember I'm making the calls here. I can't guarantee you're going to play. I can't. But when you've paid that much money and invested so much, I think you start trying to appease. And I'm sure this was you got Hutton's impression. Like Tennessee just got tired of the whole thing. I'm tired of these meetings with the dad. And if they weren't asking for money, if they're just saying, well, you got to get this guy, you got to go recruit this guy. Well, who's running the show here?
615-737-1025. We will continue the conversation and maybe answer Willie Donnick's question on the other side at 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Chiba Hut Toasted Subs. Get half off a $50 gift card now at thegamenashville.com/deals and celebrate 420 the Chiba way on Donaldson Pike.
When I sign a contract, I'm going to honor that contract. I'm not going to come to you and ask you for more money. Don't you bring your ass to me asking me to take less money, because this is what we agreed upon. Now, with that being said, Steve, Dan, you talking about targeted. He put this target on his back. Bro, you don't show up for meetings. You don't show up for practice. And I hear people say, well, coaches do this all the time. Brian Kelly left the University of Cincinnati deal. He already had a deal with Notre Dame in place. He left Notre Dame. He had a deal already in place. Now, if you want to say he got a deal in place, don't he say, look, guys, I'm going to go ahead and move on. There's a better opportunity for me elsewhere. But to do it like he did it, this is what I disagree with. Hey, get all the money you can, but don't nod yes and me no.
That was Shannon Sharp responding to Dan Orlovsky, the clip we played before the previous segment on First Take. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. We are live at BetMGM Sports Lounge. The Atlanta Braves country road trip is here. We're watching the Braves play the Blue Jays, giveaways. You can win Predators tickets by coming. Remember, the season finale for the Nashville Predators tonight at 7 o'clock. Chris Mason will join us at 1:30. But let's get to some reaction from our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on the Nico Iamaleava story. Gunner says, no one is more to blame for Nico than Tennessee and its fans. The first offer to begin with, then the way the media and fans put Nico on a pedestal that even a helicopter would struggle to meet. Tennessee and their fans made him feel entitled. That was Gunner on our text line. Terrell on our text line says, let's say no one meets his price. Do you think he sits out this upcoming season? If so, does that mean he can be recruited next season by an SEC school?
I think his family, and this is a cautionary tale. I understand trying to get as much. Because again, I'm not putting this on the young man. I'm not. He's, at least in my mind, he's absolved of any blame in my mind. And I don't agree with Shannon Sharp with what he said. But this should be a cautionary tale. This should be a caution.
Willie?
I'm laughing at Willie.
Blooper is here.
Blooper.
The Braves
What's going on, Bloop?
Blooper's shining up Willie's head.
Giving him a noogie, a shoulder rub. Blooper, you know that Willie Donick is a Mets fan, right?
Oh.
Somehow I think
Clean up on aisle 4.
might have been out.
Exactly. But this is a cautionary tale. It's just people should just look at this and I wish, man, like Nico's camp, because we can go no further than Maurice Clarett. When you get bad advice, and I understand there were some other things, Clarett, I think he did afterwards, not necessarily during the whole process of overplaying your hand, trying to, and I know people wanted to be the trailblazer. You want to be that trailblazer, but it's all about, to me, right person, right timing, right calls or whatnot. But they should have looked at Maurice Clarett as a cautionary tale that, man, sometimes, and maybe just sometimes.
Blooper draping the Braves jersey over Willie Donick's shoulders.
Sometimes you need to, really assess the moment and assess the situation you're in. Because had they done that, they would have looked at someone like Maurice Clarett, who had his resume was full. This is a guy that was one of the best backs in the country. He was coming off a team that won a national championship. So you're talking about somebody elite, and I'm not saying it had anything to do with NIL. What I'm saying is, overplaying your hand, not thinking this thing out thoroughly. And Maurice Clarett has never regained what he had at that moment, ever. Now, he's in another arena, and he's doing well because he's speaking to people that need help based upon his experience. So he has redeemed himself in a sense with that. But I'm talking about from a football sense. Nico and Nico family has to understand this. And we talked about this yesterday, Willie. Yes, I speak from a place of reality. This is where we're at. This is the landscape of sports. Things like this is going to happen. whether I agree with it or not. They're going to happen. But he has to understand this, that if not a team choose, like, if they choose not for you to pay, if they choose not to pay your money, whatever it is, are you willing to sit out the whole year or go to another level, a lower level? Because now what has happened now, you've affected yourself moving forward. You may not even get a shot with an NFL team. Ask the quarterback at Ohio State, Cardell, what was his name? That came
Cardell
in.
Jones.
Yeah, Cardell Jones. I know it didn't have anything to do, but again, overplaying your hand. Understand where you're at, assess what you're doing, like thoroughly assess it, and see if I walk out this door, I better have another deal.
Right.
I better have
But
another
think
one.
about the perspective. Nico was the 5-star number one guy in the country when he was probably a sophomore, junior. He's being recruited by everybody. He takes this huge deal. So, that you can get some inflated sense of yourself when your whole life you've been told you're so awesome, this is amazing, you need anything, we'll get it for you. Oh, you don't like this over here, let's fix that. It feels like that some of that element has been there. And I don't know how much Tennessee tried to fight that. Now, to his credit, he was patient enough to sit out his true freshman year while they played Joe Milton. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes there, but maybe that was agreed to. But it's just interesting how, hey, I don't like it, let's go somewhere else. I'll take my ball and go home. The grass is going to be greener on the other side because I'm the man. But if his goal, and we talked about this yesterday, if your goal is to play in the NFL, you better be really, really good. They're not going to move stuff around for you to be the guy for very long, if at all, if you're lucky enough to even be drafted as somebody's starting quarterback. So at some point, you got to fight your way through tough times. Now, the concussion thing is an interesting strand to this. Behind the scenes, I don't know what was going on there, but that's a whole nother bottle. I do remember the cracked helmet.
I remember the cracked helmet.
Yes.
And so if there was playing through some stuff, I don't know what was happening behind the scenes. I can see how an inner circle would be concerned about that if he was asked to do stuff that maybe he didn't want to. I don't know.
Before we go to break, Willie, you'll appreciate this text from our friend Adam in Portland. If Nico gets no offers, he should pull a full-on George Costanza. Just casually show up at summer practice in full pads like nothing happened. When Heupel says, "Didn't you quit?" he hits him with, "Wait, you thought I was serious? Oh, man, that's hilarious. No, I was just doing a bit." Then start warming up like he never left. It may come to that, Adam. We never know. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, I feel like we need a nice sounder for this. Maybe we can develop one. It's time for our recurring segment on D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick. Is Jared bananas? And we'll explain coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen live at BetMGM Sports Lounge inside Bridgestone Arena. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Team Ace Fingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live inside BetMGM Sports Lounge, which is inside Bridgestone Arena for the Atlanta Braves country road trip. Braves and Blue Jays on the big screen, have some delicious food, win some Predators tickets. The Predators season finale, of course, tonight at 7. Also right here inside of Bridgestone Arena. We'll have Chris Mason on in the next segment to look ahead to that and as we start the autopsy of the Predators season. But as I said before the break, I feel like we're going to have to come up with some sort of theme music for this. Maybe we can develop it for our recurring segment. Is Jared Stillman bananas? By the way, Mark in Paris on our text line says, you don't have to explain. The answer is yes. But
I like that.
But
fair.
But you haven't heard our argument. Oh, don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
You know, it's harsh, but fair. So we touched on this a little bit at the end. And remember, we will have Jared on at the end of the show, so we can perhaps take him to task for this.
We did sort of start this discussion
Yes,
yesterday.
we did. So we've spent a lot of time discussing L'Jarius Sneed and the issues he's having. He was arrested. He was arrested after a shooting, I guess. I mean, no one was injured, but you know, there was a shooting at a car lot in Texas. He was allegedly involved. We've talked a lot about that, and it's led to questions about the future of L'Jarius Sneed in Tennessee. Now, Jared is anti-L'Jarius Sneed, not just for this alleged incident, but because of the injury issues. He only played 5 games last season, the knee issues, the quad issues, all of those things. And then it was reported yesterday that the Miami Dolphins are trying to trade Jalen Ramsey, the hometown boy himself, Jalen Ramsey. So listen to what Jared Stillman had to say on Stillman and Company about Jalen Ramsey and L'Jarius Sneed.
9 times out of 10, I would say, do not do this. But this is the exception. Jalen Ramsey is set to make a boatload of money in Miami. And the Miami Dolphins have granted Jalen Ramsey permission to seek a trade. Their general manager, Chris Greer, who is a terrible general manager, came out today and he said, I think it's best for everybody involved that we move on. I.e., we're out of the Jalen Ramsey business. This would be the 3rd trade of Jalen Ramsey's career. He was in Jacksonville. He complained his way out the door there to the Rams, got traded to the Dolphins, and now the Dolphins are looking to trade him. He carries a $26 million fully guaranteed salary. That's a lot of money. But I'd make the move. Why? Because you need a corner. That's why. You need a corner. Free agency is behind you. And Jalen Ramsey is probably, even at this point in his career, at 30 years old, and he's not the same player he was 5 years ago, but at this point, Jalen Ramsey is probably what you thought you were getting in L'Jarius Sneed.
So that was Jared Stillman yesterday.
Just to clarify.
Yes.
Is this under the assumption that Sneed is not back?
Yes.
Okay.
Move on from Sneed, acquire Jalen Ramsey.
All right,
So
Jared,
for this to line up, though,
Hold on,
Jared's
David.
theory is that they would not have to pay Sneed.
David,
Right.
go ahead.
all right, so Jared just sent me a text. He said, throw this disclaimer out there. I was right about L'Jarius Sneed last year, and y'all were wrong. That's what Jared told me.
No. You can't say throw out.
That's what he told me. No.
No. I'm not saying you, David. You're just reading it. I'm saying he can't say throw out the disclaimer. I was right about L'Jarius Sneed. Up until now, yeah, you're not technically right because it wasn't, from what I gather, a knee injury.
Right.
So you can speculate or however you may have gotten
Jared,
your information.
You're
but
listening right now. You will be on our program in about 40 minutes. We will allow you to address it then.
Yeah.
But this is our show, so we're going to steer the conversation. But we're going to talk about the Jalen Ramsey take. So Jared suggested, as we just played, that the Titans should move on from L'Jarius Sneed and take a run at Jalen Ramsey.
That is just I guess I'm going to say this the nicest way I can. Jared, that's just completely wrong, man.
Okay,
that is just completely
Let me provide some information about this situation. The Dolphins sent a third-round pick and tight end Hunter Long to the LA Rams in March of 2023 in exchange for Ramsey, and he signed a 3-year, $55 million restructured extension upon his arrival. He was named to the Pro Bowl that season despite missing 7 games and signed a 3-year, $72.3 million extension shortly before the start of the 2024 season. He was credited with 11 pass breakups in 2024, but recorded only 2 interceptions, his lowest total since 2020. The Dolphins have already paid Ramsey a $4 million roster bonus at the start of the league year. Any team that trades for him would be responsible for the remaining $21 million owed to him in 2025.
Exactly.
That
And
according to ESPN.
He's not a top 20 cornerback in this league anymore. Miami, their thinking is he's not worth the $21 million left that's guaranteed that we got to pay him. This is a situation where, listen, if this is still Rand Carthon, you would probably blow a gasket, Jared, if they even thought about bringing in Ramsey, especially with the $21 million and a guy that is declining. Listen, he was one of the best cover corners, if not the best cover corner for a period of time. I think it was like a 4-year period in there where we listen, you didn't go at him and he held his own on that island. But as I've seen with many defensive backs that have been his caliber, as you start to get to the end, your play changes and you're not the player that you once were. There's no reason why I believe that the Tennessee Titans should bring in Jalen Ramsey. He's a declining asset. Is he a solid player still? Yeah, he's still a solid player, and he may have a season where he's a really good player. But just looking at the career the last couple of years, it's a declining asset. Listen, it happens to everybody. Everybody becomes a declining asset. If you stay in this game long enough, you're going to become a declining asset. Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson may have been the only 2 exceptions because they chose to retire early, and maybe Tom Brady. But everyone else has been a declining asset. That's what Jalen Ramsey is. Why would you bring him in on that contract? And even if you rework it, he's still going to want some guarantees, and you ain't doing nothing but pushing the money down the road.
Yes.
Why even get yourself? That's the sign of a desperate franchise.
Okay, so Chad on our text line says, we're doing Jared a little dirty by leaving out the rest of his case for it. He advocated for a restructure and only a
no matter what,
paying the money.
Exactly,
you're kicking the can down the road.
He's guaranteed $21 million.
So then you're going to be paying him when he's 32 and 33.
Exactly.
Mike Florio says Ramsey has a fully guaranteed option bonus for 2025 in the amount of $18.98 million. The new team would be on the hook for that payment, along with a fully guaranteed base salary for 2025 of $1.255 million. That's $20.153 million for a 31-year-old cornerback whose best days are in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. So Jared doesn't seem to remember what happened last year when he was talking about DeAndre Hopkins and how they should restructure his contract and sign him to another. And we said, Derek and I, he's already 30. He's not going to be what he was. He's a declining asset. You don't re-sign. You wait it out. So he's at the same stage of his career. Jalen Ramsey is a great player. He grew up in this area. He was a great player. He's not the same guy that you're going to get when you bring him in. So you don't pay him that elite money. Now, the other part of this that we hit yesterday was the Titans need picks. They need to be acquiring picks. Why would you trade an asset to get Jalen Ramsey, who is not going to make the difference of a winning team? You're not going to win with Jalen Ramsey. If they were one corner away from being a Super Bowl contender or getting you over the top and you feel like, all right, we just need that one more player, then I could understand trying to figure out a way to make it work, squeeze him in there, kick the can down the road, restructure it. But that's not where they are.
No.
They're in a full rebuild. You don't bring in players like that. And why would Jalen Ramsey want to come, other than the fact that he's from here?
Home, yeah, but why would he want to come here?
He wants to win. He wants to
Yeah.
go on a team that's going to win. Now, somebody who's going to honor that contract or rework and give him more guaranteed
Well,
money,
maybe
then I guess maybe
he
that's
wants
what it
money
is.
because he's already won a Super Bowl.
But ask yourself this: why would the Dolphins want to get rid of him if he's still an elite quarterback? They're trying to win.
Yeah, but that's my thing. Like
the Titans aren't in this. They're not in the contender zone right now.
They don't. I said it best last week. They are not in a position to gamble. They are not in a position to take chances. Like, oh, we could take it. They weren't really in a position to take a chance last year, but they did it. And look where that put them.
But okay,
they are
what's
not in a
best case?
position to take a chance on an aging player.
All right, let's say you trade a 5th round pick, which Jared says isn't worth anything, right?
A bag of footballs.
Right. Let's say you trade a 5th round pick and you get Jalen Ramsey and he has a really good year. What's best case scenario there for the team? You win 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
You win 8 games instead of maybe he's worth 2 wins.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. Where are you?
Where does that put you?
Yeah.
As an organization.
Why bother?
This team is trying to get away from contracts like that, Jared, and you know this. They're trying to get away from, signing guys that are older to these, massive contracts. This regime, I'm not talking about last year's regime. So why would I want to go out? And I know they signed Zeitler, and Zeitler's been in, but it's not some mega deal. You're not picking up. You didn't trade for him. You got him via free agency. Why would I trade for a guy that, listen, his best days are behind him, and that's no knock on him because his best days were great, but they're behind him, and he's an asset that is only going to, decline. So why even waste your? Why even put resources there?
DeAndre Hopkins, Danico Autry. We can go through the list of players.
Yeah, he paid for Danico Autry, and what did Danico Autry do?
Kevin Byard,
Paid for Byard.
All of these guys who hit the age of 30, every now and then there's a guy that finds the fountain of youth and stays productive into it, but the odds of that happening are low. And so if you're going to pay a guy like that, you don't pay him the premium price that he earned when he was still
like if he wants to come in for, 5.
Yeah, now
6,
that's a whole different story.
Let's sign him. I ain't got to give up
he
no
gets
picks.
cut, if he gets cut,
Absolutely.
then I'm in that market for the right price.
Bring him in now because it's only a truly a 1-year deal. 1 year and prove it deal.
According to ESPN, the Dolphins have considered trading Ramsey for weeks now. Despite a thin cornerbacks room behind Ramsey, Chris Greer, the Dolphins GM, said moving on from the star cornerback gives the team the, quote, best chance to help us win not only just this year, but in the future as well. Really, after a couple of weeks of discussions between ourselves internally and Jalen and his representation, we decided that it was probably in the best interest for all parties to move forward. I will say these decisions aren't done quickly, and they're not taken lightly because we spent a lot of time this offseason working through this, talking through things. At the end of the day, Jalen did not ask for a trade. We went through the process, and I just felt that after numerous conversations and then talking last week with Jalen and his agent, that it was best to move forward, and it was in the best interest of the Dolphins for Jalen Ramsey.
Let's give you another example.
And for Jalen
the Titans have already moved on from Harold Landry for the same reason. They didn't think he was worth the premier money that he was going to get paid, and so they took the savings. And Harold Landry is younger than Jalen Ramsey.
I also just
and not as I
His
think
resume don't even stack
I also
up
just
to
want
Well, he doesn't.
Jalen
Yeah,
Ramsey.
I want to
Right.
address
Should,
something quickly
but
because
still.
Andrew on our YouTube chat says, do you guys not understand that Jared's argument is considering this only if Snead is not going to be in a tight uniform next year? Yes, we understand
Yes.
that. Even then, I'm not sure
trading
I would
for him.
do it.
I wouldn't do it even. Yeah.
Paid him $21
Even if
million.
they
That's
didn't have
just me.
Snead, I wouldn't do it.
We know that Jared
Yeah.
wasn't saying bring in Jalen Ramsey to play with L'Jarius Snead. We understand his point was if you move on from L'Jarius Snead.
Well, but we don't even know if they can move on from L'Jarius Snead. They're a long way from being able to say, "Oh, we're just going to be able
so
to."
we understand the
get the
context
free- get
for
a
those of
freebie
you
for
who
that.
think that we're taking Jared out of context.
Yeah,
we understand the context.
I was listening to it when he said it.
And did you
I
think he was
understand.
bananas?
I thought he was bananas when he said it. Because my thing is, again, unless Miami is cutting him, releasing him, and they're going to take the bulk of that hit, which I don't think they want to do. They want to facilitate it where, you take some of this money or you take it all. I am not giving up draft picks. I don't care if it's a 7th round pick. If I still got to pay that $20 million and I'm giving up a 7th, 6th, 5th round, I'm not doing it. Because to me, if you don't want them on your team, you'll cut them. You're going to cut them. And then I can bring them in for $5 million and don't have to give up no picks and just make it an incentive contract for that 1 year.
Bob in Mount Juliet says, who is more likely to help the Titans win next year, Jalen Ramsey or L'Jarius Sneed?
That's not the point. They already have L'Jarius Sneed.
Yes.
They're not going to win even if they had both of them. I don't believe.
So I would say L'Jarius Sneed gives them a better opportunity.
And they don't have to give it.
He already been in the system.
And they,
so if Sneed
and they don't have to give up
and
an asset
exactly.
for Sneed. Sneed is younger.
One
we
texter.
We don't
If he's
know.
healthy.
If
he's
Sneed
healthy.
can't play, who is playing corner? Jarvis Brownlee?
Yeah, guys you draft, guys you
Guys
bring
gotta
in.
draft.
They're not going to be very good. Face
and
the facts. You're building a roster. It's going to take time. I'd rather see what I have with a younger, more inexpensive player. Maybe you find a guy. Maybe you find a Cortland Finnegan. Maybe you find a lower round pick that ends up being a good player.
We got another. Listen, who's going to play corner? Well, this team is not in a position where they're going to, well, they may, but as it sits now, do we think they're really competing for a playoff spot or to win the AFC South? Probably not, but anything can happen. I am not moving away from L'Jarius Sneed unless what happened, and now we got to make a decision. But outside of that, when you say, well, who's going to play corner, there are going to be guys, whether it be via the draft or guys
who get cut in training camp.
of Ramsey's caliber right now, of his caliber right now, that will get cut during the camp. That's going to happen.
Or before camp, a
Or
June
before
1
camp, yeah.
salary cap casualty kind of stuff.
So free agency, you're using it to supplement your roster. Any guy you get, whether it's Ramsey or anybody, it's not to, this guy, like you said, Willie, this guy's going to come in and now all of a sudden we're a playoff team. No, it's to just supplement the roster places you don't have individuals or depth.
So Jared tweeted yesterday as part of his show, I would swap day 3 picks with the Dolphins, and Jalen Ramsey would have to take a pay cut from $26 million to $21 million. But that's the move to replace L'Jarius Sneed, who the Titans should move on from.
They don't have a choice. They can't move on from him until everything is hashed out. We don't know if this is going to be hashed out in the next year.
Yeah, this thing could keep going.
I know that Jared is wish casting.
Yes,
that L'Jarius Sneed is
right.
no longer on
So
the
no,
team.
He's put the cart ahead of the horse there.
But he's even saying you give up a draft pick and you pay him $20 million. Bro,
you don't need to do that. He's going to get cut. Let's get to it. He's going to get cut if nobody offers him anything.
And the Titans spent a boatload of money last season in free agency. Where did that get them? Right? Because one
they would
texter
have got
said,
a Woozier.
One texter said, why do they need money so bad this year for?
I'm not saying that they need money. I'm just saying moving forward, you got to be smart in what you're doing because your organization is so far behind. You don't have luxury to say, let's pay Jalen Ramsey $20 million and throw him out there and expect him to be an elite cornerback. No, that's not going to happen. Now, if I get him for $5, yes, let's do it. But I'm not giving up a draft pick either. So that's just me. And listen, if the Titans choose to bring him on and they want to pay him the $20 million, so be it. But then if it does something like that doesn't work, you can't blame your fan base for being upset with you. You can blame the Titans and then Jared.
Well, we will have Jared on at the end of the show as we transition from DVD to Stoneman and Company. We will allow him to respond. I'll just let Derek and Jared have a schoolyard bash. I'll just sit back and enjoy the delicious food at BetMGM Sports Lounge, which is where we are today for the Braves Country Road Trip. Come watch the Braves take on the Blue Jays. Have a chance to win Predators tickets as well. 615-737-1025. Chris Mason, Predators TV analyst, will join us coming up next the Predators season finale tonight right here inside Bridgestone Arena against the Dallas Stars. We'll talk about that with Chris and more. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you it's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament, benefiting Folds of Honor and presented by Gary Force Acura. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, by Chris Mason, Predators television analyst. The season finale for the Predators tonight at 7 o'clock. Now, Chris, I am going to read you a list of all of the players who started for the Predators in the season opener against the Dallas Stars. I'm going to read to you a list of the players who are no longer on the team. Gus Nyquist, Tommy Novak, Philip Tomasino, Mark Jankowski, Dante Fabro, Alex Carrier, Luke Schenn, and Scott Wedgwood. So that is, by my count, 8 players who were in the starting lineup for the Predators in the season opener against Dallas are no longer on the team in the season finale against Dallas. We're going to have a lot of time over the next few weeks to sift through the wreckage of this season. But as we approach the offseason after tonight's game, what's the biggest question the Predators must answer to get back on track? Do we have Chris?
Do you guys have me?
Yes,
There we go.
Hi, Chris.
Okay, sorry, I'm there. Sorry, I was talking and nobody heard me. That's how I feel like 90% of my life. No, I'd say the biggest thing that they have to address going into next season is how do you get this team to produce at even strength, at 5-on-5. I think when you look at the roster and maybe play faster, I think they had good special teams, they had a good power play, they had a really good high-end penalty kill, top 8 in the league. I think the power play is somewhere around middle of the pack. But 5-on-5, this team just completely underproduced. They, gave up the large majority of scoring chances, did not create a good defensive environment. And I think if you're not scoring 5-on-5, that to me is where you should, really try to focus on your game. That wasn't the case. And they weren't able to generate. It ended up being, I think, the lowest scoring team in the National Hockey League. And when you look at that roster, there's just no way that should happen. So personnel wise, there's obviously going to be a lot of things, a lot of those guys that you mentioned, I think were expected to maybe elevate their game a little bit. I think Tommy Novak was, trying to kind of pigeonhole to be that centerman between Stamkos and Marchessault maybe. That didn't work out. Tomasino, they were hoping he could take the next progression in his career. He wasn't able to do that. Dante Fabro, I think that was more of a salary thing. And, if you have him as your 7th defenseman, you might as well just move on and clear space there. And I think in order to get younger, Alex Carrier is a guy that I think we all, liked on this team. It's just a matter of his salary and wanting to get a bit younger and taking a chance on a prospect of Justin Barron. So to me, the issue is going to either have to be tactically or personnel-wise to get a little bit faster and improve the production 5-on-5.
Chris, at the trade deadline, speaking of Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn, the Predators traded them to the Penguins for Michael Bunting. And there were a lot of questions about that deal, from myself included, about the value of Michael Bunting. Barry Trotz clearly values Michael Bunting and thinks that he can be a veteran who can help shepherd some of these younger players. I feel like we have received the full Michael Bunting experience since he joined the Nashville Predators. He's got 5 goals. I'm sure all of them have come within just 1 or 2 feet from the net. He has 20 penalty minutes. He's getting in scrums. I feel like
he has 20 penalty minutes.
He has 20 penalty minutes.
Not 10 minors, though.
I think it might be.
He has 10 minor penalties since he got to the Preds.
I think he got in a fight, didn't he?
He has 9. He has 9 minor penalties, according to in 17 games. I'm not sure.
Penalty minutes?
Take it up with NHL.com. My point is, Michael Bunting. I agree. Like we've received the full Michael Bunting experience. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think it's been great. I think if you look at pros and cons, having a player like that, you're going to have to eat some of those penalties. A lot of those he's taken somebody with him. He's drawn a lot of penalties. I think having seen him, compared to the group before him, they didn't have that element. I feel like he makes this team a lot harder to play against because other teams hate playing against guys like that, and they don't like playing against Michael Bunting. He's not a big guy, but he's definitely not scared or shy to go to the net. He goes to those areas. He gets in your face. He gets other teams off their games. He plays on the edge. He tries to draw penalties, maybe dive sometimes, but gets a lot of reaction from the other team, and he plays hard. And the other thing, if you watch his game closely, he's a skill player. He's got skill. He can make nifty little plays in tight. He's going to go get retrievals, get the puck out of the corner, and get it moving toward the net. If he doesn't have it, he's going to be right in front of the net, waiting for that puck to get there. And I think it's been a great ad, and I've really, in the small sample size that we've seen him, I think he brings a lot of value to the team.
Base, I'm curious your perspective. It was a super frustrating night for UC Saros. It's been a frustrating season. What would be the go away theme for your talk with him? If you're, Andrew Burnett, if you're Barry Trotz, I'm sure they'll have those discussions because he's such an enormous factor in whether this team can bounce back or not. They need a great season for him. And I think we have documented throughout the year how much of a lack of support they've given him in goal support and the environment in front of him with the defensive coverage. And there's no better example than what we saw against Utah. So how would you sort of couch that discussion and how would you try to, sort of help him rebuild? Because it's been, I'm sure, weighing on him mentally, all of the struggles that have gone on.
Yeah, it's been tough. And, we've seen it, in the last, month or so in one of those games. You can see it visually. He's usually very stoic, and you don't get a lot of physical reaction no matter what's going on in the game. And I think we've been seeing that from him lately. And I think that's just, built up frustration on how the seasons went. Just seems even in a game where he's playing well, his goal is going to go off his own defenseman. It's going to be a couple screenshots. He has no idea where the puck is. And, things like that have happened so often this year. But my advice would be, if he goes and plays in the World Championships, I hope it's a good opportunity for him to kind of go have success there. But I would just say, just delete this from your memory. There's no question about his off-season work ethic, and he's going to prepare in that regard. But I would just say mentally, just take some time. Don't do anything hockey related. Just clear your mechanism and just get away from the game and this season. And then when you're ready, you're going to hit it hard and come back. And I would also tell him we're going to be a lot better next year. We're going to make some changes and whatever the plan is. But I would just this is one of those seasons where you honestly want to forget. You want to use it as motivation in the summer, to work on some things. I'm sure they'll look at some things or maybe habits that creeped in. And because sometimes when your team's not good defensively, you do have things that creep into your game, because any given scenario on rush opportunities, because you give up so many, there's so many more outcomes of that play that can happen. So sometimes you find yourself, when you get it over and over and over again, you're kind of cheating or leaning a little bit or turned off the angle, getting loaded up for a pass. And I've seen that a little bit in his game this year, is, certain situations where he'd be completely square and he'd trust his ability and his athleticism to get over there in time. I think I've seen, because they've given up so many of those types of chances, that he's starting to lean a little bit and fade over to, maybe the most dangerous possibility or the second most, dangerous possibility in that situation. But yeah, I would try to delete this season from the memory for sure.
Okay, so now give your goalie perspective on Justus Annunen, because that's another guy that I think they believe can continue to get better. He's still at an age where he's actually played a lot of NHL games relative to players his age. Some guys don't even get a chance to play in the NHL at all until they're 25, and he's got a lot of games under his belt, and he's just now turned 25. But he does seem to, when he's on, right, he's really good. He's had little lapses within games, but how much of this do you think he has room to grow?
I think he's got a lot of room to grow, and I've seen in his game when he's on, I think he's really confident in his depth and his ability to get from point A to B and maybe a cross ice thing and, a cross ice play. And I think for him, my biggest thing would be to find the balance of your depth. When he's not playing well, I find that he fades way back into the goal line, and he's a big guy. He's a very good skater, in the ice. He's got great net coverage. But when you fade back, you're giving up a lot of holes. Again, you kind of fade off that angle. It's more of a defense mechanism for a goaltender when you're not feeling good, or maybe the defense in front of you isn't. It's kind of, you feel like you're a little more protected because you're closer to the net. But in reality, that hurts you. It opens up a lot of more holes. You're just not square to the, to the initial play. So I would be doing a lot of video with him and just showing him, hey, when you're on top of your game, you're here. Your toes are on the blue. You're challenging the shot, but you still have the athletic ability just to trust his game more in those situations. So I'd be working a lot on, trying to help him figure out the balance of when he's playing good, he's at, point A or B, and when he's, struggling a little bit, he has a tendency to kind of back in and make himself a little bit smaller. So I'd be doing, a lot of that kind of stuff with him, or at least send him home with that. I know they can send it over the summer, but just a lot of that kind of stuff, just so when he goes back and he gets on the ice again, that he's got, that front of mind to be able to focus on that during his summer training when he gets on the ice.
Chris Mason, Predators television analyst, joining us. Predators season finale. You can catch Chris and Willie one more time on FanDuel Sports tonight. Chris, great stuff as always. See you tonight.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You as well. Chris Mason on the program. 615-737-1025. All right. It's time to make our transition from DVD to Stillman & Company. We've shamed Jared for his Jalen Ramsey take, and we will allow him to respond coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. You heard the backdrop. This is the finale of the season. Nashville's offseason will begin after they play the Dallas Stars tonight. Dallas is revving things up, going for the preparation to play the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the playoffs. So all of the action starts tonight at 6 o'clock here on 102.5 The Game. And it's brought to you in part by Lee Company. Lee Company has got what you need, the tools to keep your household running and running efficiently. When it comes to general maintenance for things that might come up from time to time, from running your air conditioning and your heating when you're in a pinch, something goes wrong at the wrong time, they're there for you. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. And then beyond that, the year-round relationship, which is the most recommended deal, the preventive maintenance, the proactive, staying ahead of the curve by having their home maintenance plan. Lee Company's got a great one. You pay a small monthly fee, and you get discounts on repairs when things inevitably do need to be upgraded or maintenance. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Lee Company's been around since 1944. They've got a great system that can work for you. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live at the BetMGM Sports Lounge for the Braves Country Road Trip. The Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead against the Braves. Does that say top six? My eyes are terrible, as you can probably guess from my glasses.
That's
Yes.
the top of the six. Yeah.
All right, but you can still come out and see us. Stillman & Company will be here coming up next. But, of course, before we get to Stillman & Company, we bring in Jared Stillman. Now, Jared, when I heard you share your Jalen Ramsey's take yesterday, I thought of, first of all, you did admit that 9 times out of 10, you would not be for this. But I just thought about you talking about L'Jarius Sneed and someone texting in and saying, Jared, what about Jalen Ramsey? And you going, no.
And 9 times out of 10, that would be the case.
But you and Derek have already had a spirited conversation about this off air. You've heard what we've had to say. Here is your opportunity to respond.
I just want to know, what players am I allowed to go get? Because I'm not allowed to get Sam Darnold because he only had 1 good year. Like, yeah, he's coming off a Pro Bowl season, and so I'm not allowed to do that. And now I have to value draft picks, but I'm not allowed to trade Cam Ward, who might not even be as good as Sam Darnold. And then I'm not allowed to get rid of the injured guy who's got serious off-the-field issues right now. I'm not allowed to get rid of him. I might have to just hope and pray that he plays, because I should have accepted that last year. I traded a 3rd-round pick for him, but I'm not allowed to basically pick swap on day 3 in order to get Jalen Ramsey to pay him Sneed's money so he will do the job that you all are thinking Sneed might do that I told you last year Sneed was not going to do. So what players am I allowed to to get?
You're saying then they should not have cut Harold Landry. Because that is an upgrade. He's better than the guy they're going to have there.
I think I would say, I mean, again, my issue
Landry is
who
younger.
they cut. My issue of who they cut is that they cut the wrong guy. They should have cut Key, because Key does less.
The Key makes less.
If I knew that they were going to go do something,
there's no comparison to what those guys make.
So if
Landry's getting paid like an elite defensive end. They're cutting him
he's not
because
getting paid like an elite defensive end. An elite defensive end is a $30 million player. He's a $17 million player.
he is among the highest paid players on their team. He was before they cut him.
But he's not getting paid like an elite defensive end. If I could go back and do it, and I knew that they were going to do nothing at edge rusher, I would have kept Harold Landry.
Derek is
I'm just listening.
He's concerningly quiet right now.
And scrolling.
I just want to know, what players am I allowed to get?
Okay, listen.
So let me ask you this question.
Bargains.
Okay,
You're looking for bargain, good buys, good bang for your buck.
Who is going to play? Who would you rather trust on your team next season to play corner?
It's not about
Ramsey
next season.
or
It's about the
L'Jarius
next
Sneed?
3 seasons.
Well, Sneed has nothing
right.
to do with the next 3 seasons, so we can.
Well, when they got him, he was young enough to where I think they thought he could play until he was about 30.
Right. And they thought wrong. So where we sit right now,
in your opinion, we don't know how healthy he will be when he comes back next year.
So
I agree that there's a very big concern.
So for this upcoming season, who do you think is more likely to help the Titans? L'Jarius Sneed or Jalen Ramsey?
I think it's 50-50, and you already have Sneed.
But I'm not, again.
Sneed's younger. Sneed is a much better chance of helping me in 2 years than Jalen Ramsey.
With his injuries and his off-the-field
I don't know.
shenanigans?
He's younger. Jalen Ramsey, I know, will be 31 this year and then 32 next year.
Hey, are they
the odds are that you're not going to be an elite corner when it's 31 to 32.
I'm not asking for him to be elite. I'm asking for him to start at corner, to have a starting caliber.
And you're going to pay him
corner.
$20 million?
That's what they're doing at left tackle. That's not an elite left tackle. They're asking him to pay.
But again, you're forgetting why they probably have to pay that much for a left tackle. Why? Because in essence, they need an offensive line. They need tackles, period. So they're going to take who was their best tackle last year and move him over to the right. That maybe they're not in dire need like they are the offensive line. I know that.
You're counting on L'Jarius Sneed.
This is what I'm counting on. I am counting on, and I didn't say, because I want to clear this up. I didn't say don't bring in Jalen Ramsey. I said don't bring in Jalen Ramsey when I got to pay him $20 million and get up draft picks. That's all I'm saying. If Miami's going to cut him, if they can't get a trade, everybody knows that. So why would you be a dummy?
They can't cut him.
They want to.
They don't cut him. they're going to take the money
Listen,
is fully guaranteed.
I know.
They're going to
So
cut
either-
him, and they're going to take a $26 million haircut.
So I don't want to take on that
if
money.
they were going to cut him, they would have cut him already before the roster bonus
Listen,
was due.
okay, so that makes my case even more. Like, don't touch him. If I can't get him for anything under what he's making now for the 1 year, and when I say under, I'm talking about it's going to be more than a half of a cut. If I can get him for $5 million without giving up a draft pick, come on, I take him all day, but I'm not paying him $20-some million when he's not a top 10 corner or top 15 corner.
Willie, you're familiar with the Ted Williams
why
book, The Art of Hitting, right?
Yes, I am.
And so Warren Buffett bases his entire investment strategy off of The Art of Hitting, which is every place in the strike zone
is actually what it's called.
is not every single dot in the strike zone is not the same, right? Ted's theory is you know, if it's right down the pipe, I'm hitting 500. If it's, you know, on the outside corner, I'm
Exactly.
hitting 230. Well, I'm not going to swing
Get the good pitch to hit.
until it's right.
Yeah.
And Warren Buffett's theory is in investing, I'm never going to have two strikes on me. Ted is going to have to swing at a pitch that may not be advantageous for him to swing at inside the zone if he's got two strikes. Well, in this case, you need a corner. And I am not banking on L'Jarius Sneed. Last year, according to PFF, Jalen Ramsey was the 16th highest graded corner out of 230.
I don't need him to tackle. I don't need him to. I need him to cover. And he was.
13th.
You know what? No. You know what he ranked at in PFF? 71.6, which is what, a C minus probably. He's a. Again,
That's
you're looking
13th out of 230.
No, that was in the 20s. I just looked at it. It was in the 20s.
You may be looking at different categories.
No, I am looking at the category of coverage. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
And that's what I want him to do, cover.
But why?
But if he's not,
he's a year older.
Right.
How many 31-year-olds continue to get better?
I'm not asking to get better.
You're concerned about Sneed's.
Well, don't pay him the $20 million.
Health concerns going forwards. I'm telling you that the age concern is just as big a concern. So why would you pay a premium price for a guy that is not? He's likely to deteriorate. He's a, what did you call it? A deteriorating asset.
He is a declining asset.
Yeah.
And
Aren't
you
they
of
all
all
declining assets, though?
you of all people
Yes,
should know it. You
including
argue.
Sneed. You already have Sneed.
You
But Sneed
argue.
is hurt.
You argue
He's not
against
hurt.
your own.
Sneed is chronically hurt.
Listen, you argue against your
Not-
own.
was la-
you
chronically
argue
is
against
not
your
the right-
own. What you're saying, you argue against that every other time. But now you're not. You're arguing for it instead of against
Right, because in the art of the science of hitting,
it. Mm-hmm.
if I can swing right down the pipe and I can knock one out of the park, which is what you guys want every single
No, I'm not talking about knocking it
it
apart.
It's
But I
a
don't.
slam
But I
dunk,
don't want
yes,
a guy.
This is the guy.
I don't want to pay a guy
I have to
$20
have a
million
corner.
when he's a C minus coverage corner.
I have to have a starting corner, right?
I'm not gonna. I get it, but
It
I'm
can't
not
be-
paying him
it can't
$20
be
million.
Jarvis Brownlee.
But I already have. I have to have two on the field at one time.
So they can't. Oh, so what you're saying is, they are not going to be able to find, at least to me, in regards to the caliber of player. You're saying they're not going to be able to find the caliber of player that Jalen Ramsey is now in free agent, like as free agency continues to go. We know that veteran guys will be cut. We know that because of the money. We know that veteran guys will be cut because maybe they drafted, a corner in the first round. That will happen. You have a better chance of getting one of those guys and still having the production that Jalen may give you than to pay Jalen 20 and then not be able to justify because the play doesn't justify the $20 million.
I think Jalen Ramsey is still a starting caliber corner in the NFL.
Starting caliber corner at
what
$20
does
million.
that- where does that get you, though? Where does that get you?
Jarvis Brownlee is a solid corner. They ain't paying him $20 million.
Do you not think that last season,
Dan Moore is a
Man.
below average left tackle?
But that's
Quandre
something
Diggs, 'cause they
different.
have to.
last season,
Left tackle
Quandre
is something
Diggs
different.
signed what, in early August, right? For a pretty small contract. You don't think that the Titans could find a cornerback like they found Diggs?
They can find
late?
a quarterback,
They did
man.
that. Do you know what that got them? Do you remember Jonathan Joseph? Remember when he signed, he was Vrabel's guy from the Texans, and Jonathan Joseph was a Pro Bowl caliber corner, and they got
And he
him
was
on the
a
cheap.
declining asset.
And but Jalen Ramsey is not that bad.
He is. Yes, you haven't watched. Wow. Wow.
But you
wow,
keep
wow,
ignoring
wow. You haven't
where you
watched
went
him.
wrong on DeAndre Hopkins.
He was
and
a
Denico
great
Autry.
player.
As you get
Denico Autry's
older,
fine.
What?
Denico Autry's
Autry's
fine.
good
He
last
got
season.
benched.
He had 2 sacks.
Yeah, he got
He got
suspended.
hurt. He got
Oh,
well.
my
Yeah,
Denico Autry's still
he got
good.
suspended. Why do
No,
you
he-
think he got
no, no.
suspended?
Like in the playoff
Why-
game, he went and
why-
sacked the quarterback.
Why do you think he got
He's-
suspended?
Yeah, the little juice.
So
He would be
Why?
arguing
Why?
against this
Why?
every
Because
time,
I
but
said
now he's
nine
So why
arguing
would you take-
for
I
it.
said 9
Why would
times
you
out
take
of
the
10,
juice?
I would be against this, but I'm not against it in this one instance because you're taking.
I'm not
Steve's money
against it, but not
and
at
you're
that
giving it to Ramsey.
price. Jared,
Okay.
I'm not against you. I'm just against the price.
We have to let
That's all I'm against.
we have to let Jared get to the start of Stillman and Company coming up next. Barry Trotz will be live at 5 o'clock right here at BetMGM Sports Lounge. Predators season finale tonight against Dallas. Of course, Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people and the people outside of your circle. Have a blessed, wonderful, and safe Wednesday. Peace.